Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. An absolute pleasure to have you here with us at the London Film Festival. Huge congratulations on your film. For people who haven't seen it yet, can you give us a brief intro? What can they expect coming into Love and War?
Love and War is about Lynsey Addario, Pulitzer Prize-winning photographer, who has spent a career documenting the major conflicts and humanitarian crises of our time. But it goes beyond what's on the front page to really look at the personal price that such a calling requires.
So many amazing films that you've made, people scaling cliffs, surviving in caves. Do you see a through line between your work, and why was turning your camera to Lynsey the next project you wanted to take on?
I'm very interested in this fundamental human quality that is individual courage. I think that all of these films look at individuals who are exceptional, but that got this human audacity to have a vision, but also the commitment and discipline to see it through. And Lynsey is uncompromising in her work. I think it's also just it's different from the other films because what Lynsey does really is a social justice calling. There's this idea of bearing witness for all of our well-being that she has dedicated, her life to.
And for you, Lynsey, spending a life behind the camera, being a storyteller yourself, what was it like having that turned back on you, and particularly, delving into your personal life? Was that something you were intimidated by? Was that a completely new frontier for you? Did you have any hesitation?
It was difficult. I'm definitely very comfortable behind the camera, not so comfortable in front of the camera. But I think I made a decision when I said yes to Chai and Jimmy, and when I decided to move forward with this documentary, that I would have to be the subject that I always sort of demand of my subjects. And that would mean trying to be as comfortable as possible, trying to open my life in a way that was that does convey the whole story of what it is like to do this work, to the toll it takes not only on myself but on my family. And I think that is a big part of this film. I think we see a lot of films about war correspondents and war photographers, but we don't often see the personal life. And I think that's often because most of us don't have a personal life for so many years because of this work. And so I thought I was very lucky that my husband and my children were comfortable. I think a lot of that was because of the pared down we had Chai very wisely had one person with me at home, and he was sort of a one-man band, Thorsten Thielu, and he did audio, he shot, he would sort of come in the morning and basically not leave until we fell asleep, and that made the authenticity possible because my husband and my kids were comfortable with him. And then in Ukraine, it was Andriy Dubchak, who I was with all the time in Ukraine. So I think that was very helpful to just have one person with me rather than a crew.
And there was so much that I sort of really connected with, being a mum of a 5-year-old, and I'm absolutely not working on the front line, but even just working in a career that I'm in, in the creative industries, you do have that crisis of identity and how you balance home life and career. And I wonder for you, Chai, why was it important to sort of show both the contrast between those things and how specifically, gender comes in to how you're treated, how you're judged, any prejudices that might be there, and perhaps something you might have faced as well in your career as a filmmaker?
Oh, I very much identify with Lynsey's experiences. And, I think we live in a time where not only is journalism under attack, but women are under attack. I think the more stories, the more honest, the more candid we can be about the messiness of life and those struggles and the injustice that professional women deal with every day. Sexism is alive and well in Hollywood too.
And, how do you think that things have improved at all, since the beginning of your career? You've got some great anecdotes in there about the brazen misogyny that you faced, throughout your career. But it does feel like gradually we're, getting more of a spotlight thrown on women in this job. But perhaps things are opening up more. How do you see it?
Look, I think some things have definitely changed, but some things have not. And I think that, one of the reasons why I decided to finally do a film after having been asked a few times was that if it wasn't me being featured, it probably would have been a man again. And I'm sort of tired of always seeing a man in this role. And I think, yeah, there is sexism, there is misogyny, there is all of this is still obviously continues. But I think with every time we are vocal and we spotlight this, hopefully people will become more aware, because some of it is not even. I honestly think some people just have these biases without realizing it, and it's really important to just talk about it openly, and hopefully that lends to change being made in the future.
And in terms of the making of it, what were there any standout moments for you in terms of what might have been most challenging in dealing with the material, whether that was moments on the front line or perhaps, the sort of really candid, raw moments, in more sort of like domestic life? What were the standout bits for you?
Well, it was very difficult for me to watch Lynsey's personal moments with her family because I felt, I was seeing my own children, and my own experiences in it. And, I think though structurally the film is very complex, and it's really because of the breadth of her work, like it spans over 20 years, and all those stories are important. But the question really was like, what is the reason for being of the film? And I think it came down to Lynsey's character. It's like her sheer force of character, of heart, the connection she's able to forge with her subjects, and how do you invite audiences into that experience to try to get a taste of the viscerality of it.
And for you, I mean, watching it back, I don't know what you must feel, whether that's revisiting this moment that you were kidnapped and seeing your husband go on TV and say, we've got to come back because we've got to start our family, or perhaps seeing those moments with your children. What's kind of the emotional journey you go on when you watch it?
I mean, I have a very hard time watching the film because it is very emotional for me. And it does revisit all of the trauma that I've experienced over the years, and also the trauma that I've imposed on my loved ones and my family members. And so I think I'm generally at this point able to watch the first kind of 15 minutes and then I step out because it's just too much. And I think that's a good thing. I think that means that Chai and Jimmy have done a great job, because I think that my goal in doing this was never to make a pretty picture, and never to sort of present something that was unrealistic. As Chai said, this is messy and it's a difficult life. And I think that needs to be portrayed. It does not do any service to men or women or parents around the world to pretend that this is easy, because it's not. There's enough judgment already in our society about motherhood, about, what it's like to try to juggle a profession and being a parent. And, we don't need any more judgment. We need to sort of start understanding each other and say, like, it's okay, everyone can carve his or her own path.
And the key question, that's asked throughout the film, whether sort of raised in the minds of the audience, but also directly to you, is it worth it? And I guess what it also, shows is that actually maybe it's more important than ever to have people on the front line in an era of AI and, pictures being manipulated and being able to know what's true and what isn't seems even more up for debate. So do you think that was a key question that you wanted to have at the centre of the film?
Absolutely. I think it's also very timely. And it's interesting because it's always been, a free press is the foundation of democratic society, and prescient right now or important right now again. But I do hope, I think what the film does very effectively is demonstrate the importance of the work and of bearing witness in person and of forging those connections with these victims or these people who are so often overlooked, and how it's for the benefit of all of us.
And particularly that, in that image from the Ukraine, how one picture can really steer perception of a conflict, even shift, political viewpoints, government's decisions. So I guess for you, it's the answer is always it's worth it. But do you hope that also comes across in the film?
Yeah, of course I hope it comes across in the film, because I think that, as Chai said, journalism is under attack from many different angles. And I think as someone who has constantly risked my life and put myself out there, it will always be worth it, because I wouldn't do it when it stops being worth it, right? I mean, it is not an easy life. It's not financially lucrative. It is not, there are no other reasons to do this job other than sheer belief in the necessity of freedom of press and information and justice, and to document what's happening in our world, to document, human rights abuses and the conflicts taking place around us. And I think that it's very easy to discredit an image now, to say fake news, to say, oh, that's AI. But when you have a person like myself, like my brave colleagues in Gaza, like the Ukrainian journalists in Ukraine, you cannot discredit it because there is a human being behind that camera. And it's important to never forget that.
And I think the other thing that really stood out to me is also this point about having a breadth of perspectives. So it's not just, the fact that we should be able to have the same opportunities as men, but actually we can bring something different to the table by having that female lens, whether that's as making movies or whether that's being a war photographer. So is that also something really key that's a point made by the film?
Yes. I mean, I think you by spending this time in Lynsey's life, I think you really understand how her experiences inform her gaze, and I think that's where a lot of the power comes from, where it's just this idea of connection and also this idea of compassion and, I don't know, like responsibility.
Is that something that you feel strongly about too?
Well, I mean, look, I often get asked, like, do men and women see differently? No, I don't believe that. I think that people respond to us differently. We have different access. We have different interests, and we all carry through documenting the stories and the angles of stories that interest us. I mean, I came from a family, very female-centered family. We're 4 sisters. My parents, it's a family of like female empowerment. And so I'm often drawn to stories about women. And I think that just having that voice in a profession where it's very male-dominated is helpful, hopefully. I can only hope so. But I will continue doing those stories because they do interest me.
Just very quickly, what does it mean to be here at London Film Festival? I know you've had many of your films here. Must feel like a homecoming in some way.
It does, and it's really nice. Like I'm just so honored to be playing here. And we had a wonderful screening last night, and very un-British. It wasn't very reserved. I was kind of staggered with the standing ovation that Lynsey received, and really moved. And I mean, it's also a hometown screening for you because you live here. So
I've lived here 14 years now, so it is amazing for me to have to be part of the BFI Film Festival. And I think it's it's an honor. My friends and family were able to come last night, parents from the school, it's just something different. I think for me, it's a real honor. It's an honor that anyone would take 90 minutes out of their life to come see a film about me. And I think that's a testament to Chai and Jimmy's filmmaking.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with me. Huge congrats on the movie.
Thank you.
I found it so moving and inspiring, and also it's a really important film, I think, for people to see. So thanks so much.
Thank you.